we've got the UFC 236 at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, this April 13th. We looked at the odds earlier in the week, and right now with Devin, we're going to make some picks for the main card fights. How you want to do this? You want to go from top to bottom or bottom to top? I've got Holloway and Poirier at the top, and the openers for the pay-per-view are Krylov and St. Preux.
Let's start with Krylov and Ovince St Preux, and then move up.
Okay, terrific. Light heavyweight action sees Ovince St Preux and Nikita Krylov squaring off. A near pick-em fight with St. Preux at -105, Krylov at -115. How do you see this one going?
Well, it's important to note with this fight, the first thing is Ovince St Preux is the only one ranked out of these two. He's ranked it right now at number 12. St. Preux is coming off a third round. In the books, it's listed as a third round, a decision loss to Dominic Reyes, but he got knocked out at the end of that third round. And anybody who watches that, remember that. Krylov was on a 4-fight win streak. All of those 4 fights were outside of the UFC. But then he came back into the UFC for a fight against Jan Blachowicz and lost in the second round. They don't have Krylov ranked, but this is a rematch dating back to 2014. And one thing that I looked this up in preparation for this, back then St. Preux was a very heavy favorite to win, and St. Preux actually won that fight by a Von Flue choke in the first round. Now, these days, the odds are a lot tighter, and there's a reason for that. I think a lot of people are starting to figure St. Preux out a little bit. I think that this will be a primary striking fight. I don't think he mixes together strikings and takedowns well enough. I think Krylov shines in that type of an environment if he's not facing a Misha Serkinov or a Jan Blachowicz who's able to grapple him and take him down. I think that's St. Preux's best strategy in this fight. But I think that Krylov's going to be able to be the sharper striker on the feet and keep this fight mainly on the feet. And I'm going to go with Nikita Krylov to beat Ovince St Preux.
And that's the light heavyweight opener of the pay-per-view this Saturday. Moving on up the card, we got welterweight action. Again, a nice tight line here. Dwight Grant, a slight dog at +105, taking on Alan Jouban. Jouban -125 on the comeback. Give us your scoop on this one, Dev.
This one's a hard one for me because when you look at Jouban, he is 37 years old. He's been a talented guy, but has always just kind of been a journeyman. And he did just kind of have a pretty emotional win over Ben Saunders because he needed that win. He was on a 2-fight losing streak before that. But he's been in there. I mean, those 2 losses were against Nico Price, who we just saw recently pull off a big knockout, and Gunnar Nelson, who we know is really good. But he does also have wins over guys like Bilal Muhammad, who's a really good fighter, and Mike Perry. And so he's been solid, kind of inconsistent, up and down. And then when we get Dwight Grant, he's coming off the Contender Series, I'm pretty sure, yeah. And he's 1-1 inside the octagon. He lost a split decision to Zach Otto and 1-1. I think that he's more on the way up than Jouban. This one's a really hard one to call. I think Jouban has more experience. I think he's a little bit sharper of a striker. But just from the fact that, oh man, this is a hard one for me. I went back and forth with this one because Ben Saunders is a very good fighter, and he just beat him. But I also see Ben Saunders has been in a lot of wars and stuff. I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna take the dog pick with this. I'm gonna go with Dwight Grant. I think that he's got more momentum behind him. I think that he's gonna be a little bit more hungry than the 37-year-old Jouban, who has showed that he can be a little inconsistent at times, even though he's lost to good fighters. I'm gonna go with Jouban.
Yeah, you mean Grant, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm going to go with Grant.
Okay. And moving on to more light heavyweight action, we've got Khalil Rountree taking on Eryk Anders. Anders coming in a 2-1 favorite at -200. Rountree coming back at +170. A little wider line here. Anders expected to do well according to the books. What do you think?
Yeah, see this is really a bit must win for Eryk Anders at this point, who was brought in. You know, they even gave him main event slots against like Lyoto Machida and Thiago Santos. I think he took the Santos fight on short notice, and he's had some exciting fights. But Khalil Rountree is a powerhouse, and he's coming off a first round finish from Johnny Walker. Before that, he was on a 3-fight win streak and even knocked out the legendary kickboxer Gokhan Saki in the first round. He's got big power. He's not afraid to throw it. And I guess apparently he went to Thailand after the Johnny Walker fight to work on his clinch game, because Johnny Walker just ate him up in the clinch and ended up knocking him out with elbows in the clinch, dropped him, and it was a vicious knockout. I I still think there's a lot of upside to Khalil Rountree. I think he's a very tough fighter, and there's been moments where I'm like, man, he could be a big contender at this division. Still very young. I have more faith in him. I think that the physicality might be in Anders' favor, but Anders has fought down at middleweight. I think Khalil is a little bit bigger. I think Khalil's more a heavier puncher. I'm going to go with Khalil Rountree in this fight.
And another underdog there. Let's go ahead and hit the first of the middleweight, first of the interim title fights. This one, obviously, in the middleweight division. 5 rounds of action. Kelvin Gastelum, Israel Adesanya. Adesanya, the favorite at minus 185. Gastelum paying back at plus 160. What are your thoughts on this one?
Very close fight. Very good fight. Two in their prime, elite level fighters that are hungry, that want that gold around their waist, that it's the perfect time for both of them. The thing with me is Adesanya has so much history in striking matches of distance management. He has a more diverse tool bag to work with, and I he's also definitely taller and longer than Gastelum. Gastelum's going to have to try to make the fight a little dirty. I think he's going to need to mix it up. He's got really good wrestling. He's a much better wrestler than Adesanya, but Adesanya's and this is a step up in competition for sure for Adesanya compared to a 43-year-old Silva who plays right into his style, and then a Derek Brunson before that. So I mean, this is a big step up for Adesanya, but I think we're going to see Kelvin reaching a lot for shots. I think that he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna get the fight to the ground very easy. And if he does, I'm not convinced he's gonna be able to finish the fight there. I think Adesanya is going to be the more diverse striker. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna be really hard for Gastelum to really land that solid shot on. I think it could potentially be a good fight, and of course Kelvin could win this fight. And Kelvin's got very good boxer. He's really become a very elite boxer wrestler, but I think that the diversity in the strikes from Adesanya will be the difference in his ability to manage his distance and use his techniques effectively. I think this is going to be probably Stylebender's best performance yet. I'm going to call Adesanya to beat Gastelum either by a finish somewhere in the third to fifth or a unanimous decision.
And the main event of the evening in the lightweight division, another interim belt going home with the winner, Max Holloway, moving up in weight as the favorite, minus 210. Poirier, Dustin Poirier, the diamond, returning at plus 175. And this one here could lead to Khabib, could lead to Conor. What it does is it leads to an interim title that, as we stated in the earlier part of the podcast, they will probably be defended before they get to unify. But how do you see this Saturday going, Dev?
When we look at Max Holloway, man, we've known for a long time that he was not going to be able to keep his career down there at featherweight. He's a very big man. He's gonna fit in this division just fine. He's gonna have more power in his punches, probably more pop, more energy, and he is just relentless. When you look at the amount of volume that he threw on Brian Ortega, it never slowed down. Um, it's really amazing. The thing with Poirier is he's not going to be able to he's not just going to stand in front of Holloway and take shots, eat them, and try to land a big shot. I mean, Poirier moves well. He's got good head movement. He's got a wide set of striking techniques, and he's got a lot of firepower in his hands. And I do think that Max is the favorite in this fight, but Dustin is a live dog. I mean, if somebody wants to take a bet on him, I don't blame them. I mean, he's motivated. He's on a good streak, and we just saw Justin Gaethje. I mean, in his fight with Justin Gaethje was just bananas. It was great. And Dustin Poirier is somebody who is just seasoned and blossomed into his true potential that we've always knew that he had. And he's 30 years old. He's in his prime. He's hungry, and he has a win over Holloway. Now, granted, Holloway was like 20 years old at the time, and if you look at looking at just a few little footage of that fight, you can tell it's nothing like what the Holloway we got now. But the thing, the Jose Aldo fights are what stick out with me with Max Holloway. The way he was able to just measure Aldo so effectively and use his movement to gauge his distance. And when he really and the same thing with Anthony Pettis, same thing with Jeremy Stevens. When he really starts fighting you and getting off, he's really good at backing guys up, putting together combinations and breaking guys down. And I'll be honest, I've seen more willingness to start fading out of a fight from Poirier before than I have from Holloway. And I think that in a 5-round fight, I think this is going to be a slug. I think the fans are going to be the winner in this fight. I think this is going to be a very exciting fight where they both have their moments. But I think it's going to be a fight that, even though it's competitive, we know that Holloway is still controlling it and dictating it. And I think he starts to take over by the 3rd round. And I think that Holloway's going to end up either getting a late finish or just really taking over by the middle of the fight. And I'm going to go with Max Holloway to just outgun and be a little bit sharper, a little bit better with his head movement, a little bit better using his range. And I think he's gonna come back and avenge his first loss from at the hands of Dustin Poirier in this fight and become the interim champion.
And that might set up a trilogy. We'll see how that goes. That is definitely an interesting pick with Max Holloway. Like I said, Holloway, the featherweight champ, moving up. So he's looking for that champ label and actually to follow in the footsteps of Conor McGregor. All makes it interesting, all interesting storylines this weekend for UFC 236. I'm Miguel Dorati for the CRP. I've been joined by our MMA ace, Devin Miller, to make picks for UFC 236. That's the Wage Rage. It's in the books.